We always use the term resilient at TVF. And while maybe we aren't growing like gangbusters, we can still manage to get through and have successful years, even when maybe it feels much harder and it takes a lot more effort. Being employee-owned now for, as you said, 16 years has created a lot of ownership and a lot of passion and investment, like a lot of skin in the game, I guess. And over the next year and a half, as things hopefully turn the corner, we have an opportunity to really take advantage. And I know that's what me and the team are preparing for and excited for that challenge.
Tad Calahan, welcome back to Empowered Owners.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always fun. We are pretty much doing an annual, every year we kind of check back in, see how things are going at TVF. So appreciate you joining again this year. Why don't you just start off with a little bit of overview, just how have things gone for TVF for in this past year or so?
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Good question. The last year has been positive. We made some good progress internally in how we're improving the business, and obviously tariffs have been a big story. So also some headwinds and some challenges that we've had to work through in terms of the tariff situation. But as a business as a whole, we've made good strides in a lot of different areas. So all in all, it was a good year of progress and helping us move forward as a business.
Yeah. What types of things did TVF work on over this past year?
Yeah, a lot of it had to do around evolving and maturing our systems, our data, our process. Really, we're focused on how to be more scalable as an organization, how to serve our customer more efficiently, more effectively, and a way to add more value and really try to build a partnership with our customers. So that's a lot of the work that we've done. And going back to the early part of the year last year, we did a lot around kind of refreshing our core values, thinking more about the purpose of TVF. Why do we do what we do? And a lot of that came out of wanting to be a trusted partner to our customer. How do we help be an extension of their business? Those kinds of things that have really helped create that, I guess, North Star, that directional on why we're doing what we're doing and the things we're trying to do to make the business better to serve our customer to the best of our ability.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. I think last year we talked about, TVF's in the middle of like embracing some new systems like CRM and stuff, and that effort would continue, probably long into the future. How's that going at this point for TVF?
Yeah, it's going well. Over the last year, a lot of that progress I just spoke of has been around our systems, especially our CRM, being a new thing for us. And it is something that I think historically businesses can be challenged with. So we're going through a lot of that, those same growing pains that I think a lot of other companies experience. But we've done well in terms of a team coming together, seeking to understand each other, and focusing on like the outcomes, what are the things we're trying to accomplish, how we do those things. May have to change, we may have to adapt and do hard things, but ultimately ensuring that we're all aligned on the outcomes that we're after, and then working as a team to get there. And we've done a lot of work around data visibility, system maturity, because CRM is a new system for us. And so building those new habits and disciplines has been a little bit of a stretch for the team and for us as a business. But I think it's been good way to stretch the organization and make sure that we're evolving and focusing on the right things to make the business better so we can serve our customer more optimally.
Yeah, that's awesome. What you mentioned tariffs earlier. For those that everyone's heard the word tariffs, but like how has the tariff situation impacted TVF this past year? Yeah,
it's impacted us to quite a great deal. We do import a fair amount of our product from across the globe. And so, with all of the changes, and one day it's one thing, one day it's the next, and trying to navigate that, one, to manage our own costs so we can get clear on that, but also how we communicate that to the customer. How do we stay true to what we want to be to our customer, which is that trusted partner? And so managing that, communicating as clearly and as confidently as we can. And then, of course, things change and evolve, and then you got to kind of reset your expectations and reset our approach, and kind of go through that whole flywheel again as things have evolved. But we're all dealing with it across the whole industry. And so it's been something that we're all in together and just trying to do the best we can to manage it for ourselves and negotiate what that means in terms of the impact for TVF, but also how we manage, pricing and how we manage those relationships with our customer. It's not been easy, especially for a lot of our team. Obviously, we dealt with tariffs, in 2018-ish timeframe, I think it was, but not nearly to the extent that the last year has created for us. So it's been a challenge, but for every challenge that you incur, there's always opportunity. And I think that's ultimately how I'm trying to help the team see this as an opportunity for us to understand how we can make the business better. So when these kinds of shifts and changes happen, we can respond to them and adapt in the way that we can to be agile and try to do the best thing for not only us, but for our customer. Because when these things do happen, they reach out to us and want to know, how are we addressing it? How are we dealing with it? Sometimes it's easy and straightforward, but a lot of times with as much change as there has become with the different tariff rates, different countries, it's been really hard to navigate. But I've been really proud of our team and the experts we have on our team that really have stayed super close to this and helped advise everyone across the company on what we're doing, how we're doing it, the trade-offs, all of the nitty-gritty stuff. So we've navigated it actually pretty well relative to what impact it could have on our business and our customer. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I think, it's in the news currently that maybe the tariffs they've been declared, not actually allowed under the rules of what they were declared under. And there may be some sort of refund process or something. What are your thoughts on what you're hearing in the news currently on the possibility of the tariff, an actual refund potentially coming?
Yeah, it's an evolving situation. We're certainly staying close to it. I wish I had a crystal ball. I'd have maybe a little more confidence, but I do think that this is going to be a long process. There'll probably be some type of appeal, or as we've seen, they're starting different tariffs under different sections and doing what they can to continue to meet the goals and the objectives that this administration has. And so understanding where we actually end up might take some time. In terms of refunds, certainly we want to do the right thing whenever the time comes, but we also need to have better confidence and clarity on what that looks like. Yeah. So internally, we're taking all of the precautions and steps to ensure that, we're getting in line like everyone else. Should the day come that refunds and this whole kind of wind down of tariffs could potentially happen. And when it does, we're starting to talk through what that looks like, how we communicate to the customer, our approach, and ultimately, handle it the best that we can. It's certainly a very challenging situation, I think, for all the companies that are in this space, and trying to do the right thing, but also making sure you're protecting your business, your customer, and just so much of it's just still unknown, even though there has been the ruling that came down from the Supreme Court. There's still a lot to be known and be clear and confident about before we really make any final decisions on any actions to take.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's been a year of a fair amount, just continuing with the change process that had started previously, making some real progress on that front, turning some corners even with some of the technology stuff, dealing with the tariffs. What have you experienced in just the general market, TVF's customers, and how has the general market felt and kind of performed this year?
Yeah, I think it depends on the market. We serve quite a few. So I think the general sense is everyone's just, I think, getting tired of the inflation and the price pressures and then the tariffs. And it just seems to be over probably the last several years has been a real challenge. And this
cautious,
last
maybe?
year, cautious. Yeah, there's just been a lot of, I think 25 has been similar to a few of the years before it, just a little bit more of a magnitude because tariffs have kind of poured on more of the cost sensitivity. And of course, demand's a little soft. So ultimately, I think we're all just trying to muddle through it, understand, how can we work on the things that we can control as a business, both for us and across the industry, and looking for better days ahead where there's more confidence, more certainty, and more demand, so we can all kind of get back to really the fun and exciting action that I think we're all in this for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So with all that said, like how is TVF doing this? We're about to wrap up our fiscal year soon. So how is TVF doing this year?
Yeah, relatively well, considering everything that we've been through. There's some areas that obviously are a little bit below expectations, but certainly the team internally has done a great job managing the controllables and the things that we can control to make sure that ultimately the year is going to finish, relatively where we would expect it to, based on where we started the year. And considering and reflecting between the tariffs and all the things that we've been challenged with, ultimately the outcome, and obviously we've still got 2 or 3 weeks left here, but ultimately I think we have a good chance of meeting most of our expectations for the year, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a win, assuming the last couple of weeks finish out, as you said. But that's impressive. Yeah, so just generally then, like what else are you, when you look back on the year, like anything else you'd highlight in terms of stuff you're proud of or just celebrating, what the company has achieved this year?
Yeah, I'd say along with all the stuff we've already talked about, we're also going through some infusion of talent. So we've hired several key people in key areas across the business already. We've got some new folks starting, and we've got a few open roles that we're working on bringing into the company that I think will really bolster some of our team in certain areas that I think is really exciting to see what that'll do in terms of giving the company a boost in certain areas into the future. So I'd say that's one thing certainly I'm proud of, and adding good talent is always a challenging thing, especially the labor market and the way things have been probably over the last 6 months. So that's been a highlight, and I think we're starting to prepare for kind of the next generation of people that are going to carry TVF forward for many more years, and that's really exciting to think about the opportunity that's in front of us to not only manage the business the way that we have today, but also the opportunity that exists to continue to grow and scale and create a better business, better company for our customer ultimately.
That's great. So that makes me think of, and I'm curious, the employee ownership, TVF's kind of old hat at this now, being 16 years employee owned. So sometimes I think it's easy for us to even forget, that like, oh yeah, we're also employee owned on top of everything else. But I think it has had a big impact for TVF this year, and from what I've gathered. And the two things for me that come to mind, and I'm curious if this resonates with you or if you see other ways, but like in those hiring, like I'm wondering if being employee owned might have helped some with some of the hiring this year, and also just kind of people staying committed and engaged during challenges with tariffs, with technology changes and stuff. Like, do you think being employee owned has in a way kind of bolstered or supported the company to navigate this past year in these couple of ideas, or anything else that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's certainly part of it. Being employee owned now for, as you said, 16 years has created a lot of ownership and a lot of passion and investment, like a lot of skin in the game, I guess. Yeah. For a lot of the people that have been here especially from the beginning, and even folks that have been here even 5 or 10 years.
Yep.
It's a really cool thing to be a part of, and I do know it has had an impact for those that have joined recently, but also for a lot of our folks that have been here a long time, primarily in terms of making sure that we're being good stewards of the business and looking out for its best interests, especially when times are hard. We always use the term resilient and at TVF, and about how resilient our people are, the businesses, and how we can perform in good conditions and even harder conditions, maybe more headwinds like we've had in the last year. And while maybe we aren't growing like gangbusters, we can still manage to get through and have successful years, even when maybe it feels much harder and it takes a lot more effort relative to maybe a business that's not employee owned, where people may be feeling a little bit more down or maybe not as motivated to keep going. And so having that level of commitment, or jump ship. Yeah,
totally.
Yep. Grass is greener. Certainly those things can happen. And we don't see that as often at TVF for a lot of these reasons, but certainly the team and even the new folks, they're always curious to understand it, and they hear a lot about it in the interview process and the potential and the opportunity that exists. And so I've heard from several people that we've hired here recently that it was a factor, and we're certainly glad to have them and welcome them into the employee ownership, and make sure that they get the proper rewards of being part of what we're trying to build in terms of adding more value and creating a more valuable business.
That's awesome. Okay, so looking forward, what excites you about the coming year or so?
Yeah, good question. I think the opportunity, kind of a little bit of what we've already talked about, with all the foundation that we're setting in terms of trying to make TVF a more scalable. I think that's really going to help us evolve, serve our customer better, and expecting that the economy will start to settle down and get to a place where there's more confidence within the economy to increase demand and make stronger business decisions. And I think that'll benefit us and the market in general. And that's when the fun happens. And I think right now, having the opportunity to build for those moments is going to be exciting. And over the next year and a half, I think, as things hopefully turn the corner, and we have an opportunity to really take advantage. And I know that's what me and the team are preparing for and excited for that challenge.
That's awesome. Well, this has been a great update on TVF. What about, let's finish up with a fun thing. We sometimes do a Mount Rushmore to end our episodes. So this year we just had the Winter Olympics recently. I know many may know that you participate in some winter sports from time to time. For what Mount Rushmore would you like to answer, Tad?
Let's do a Winter Olympics sports that I guess we would compete in or that we enjoy. I don't know how we want to.
So your top four, let's say, Winter Olympic sports that you personally would want to compete in if you could.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hit us.
Okay. I think the first one for me is the biathlon. So that's the one where there's cross country skiing and they got the rifle on their back and they got to stop and
that's awesome.
Do shooting and then do the skiing again. I don't know that I could actually train and be a decent cross country skier. I'm not really an endurance sport kind of guy, but I think the intensity and the stamina combined into one sport where you have to have accuracy, stamina, strength, all that. It's one of those like obscure sports that I really enjoy and really honestly only watch when the Olympics come around. But it's just so fascinating. And then if you miss a target, you got to do the penalty lap, and the whole thing is just really fascinating to me. And it'd be a neat thing to be really good at. I think
Love
back
it.
to Scandinavian times and doing cross country skiing and out there and a bear or something rolls up on you. It's such a wild thing to do as a sport.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah. What about you, Chris?
Oh, I was not going to cover any of mine. This is your top four, Tad.
Okay.
So I'm going to let you run with it.
All right. Well, I think my second one would be the skeleton, which is basically like the luge, but they go head first. For those that know me, I'm kind of a speed guy. I like speed. I like going fast.
Love it.
So
yep.
It's dangerous. It's fun. I don't know that I could actually do it. They do 80 some miles an hour and your chin's like an inch from the track, but it sounds fascinating, and I'm sure it's an adrenaline rush that I'd really enjoy.
Absolutely.
I'll save the obvious one for last. I think the other one would be curling. I had this conversation with some friends. They're like, okay, what's the one Olympic sport you think that you could just without training or anything, just go out there and be good at, which is hilarious because can't really be good at any of this stuff just, out of the blue. But curling seems like that one thing. It's like, you could just kind of have fun with your buddies, have a couple drinks.
It's the hangout.
It's the
hangout sport.
Yeah, it's the hangout. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the winter version of, what is it, like bocce ball or whatever. You see it like the retirement centers or whatever. And then the last one obviously is ice hockey. Playing hockey for as long as I did, and obviously coming off the gold medal game, that was just so exciting and so fun to watch, and certainly something that I always dreamt of as a kid to play hockey at a high level and playing the Olympics. And growing up in the 80s, the miracle game of 1980 and stuff was really fresh and something that I remember how that kind of impacted even youth hockey at the time. So would love to obviously have a chance to experience all that. That would be such a lifelong dream and such a fun thing to do.
Love it. Those are all great answers. I honestly couldn't top them even if I were participating. So yeah, that's a great list. Tad, thanks for coming on Empowered Owners.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.